Hey guys, Jacob here. This is going to be a new build video. First of all, this is a little late, but hope all you guys had a great Christmas. And this is going to be a new build, which is going to be the Bloodsucker armor build that I've been working on pretty for a while now, trying to get the pieces that I've been wanting to get. And I've actually made around 3 or 4 versions of this build. I actually made a medic style version of this build based around safeguard and patience. And I also designed this variant right here and another one I'm still currently working on. But this is how the build is currently designed. I'm using the survival specialization, which I'll get into in a little bit, but that's the specialization I'm using. You could use something like sharpshooter or even technician if you really want to use those, and you could change the build a little bit around those to adapt them for stuff like, perfect spotter that some people are using, or just have really, really good heals. But I am using survivalist. That's the specialization I'm using. The primary weapon I'm using is the Police M4. You could use pretty much whatever you want. You could use the talents, could be a little bit different if you really want them to be. But I'm using the Police M4. You could use the FAMAS, the P416, or even the Eagle Bear. If you don't have any of those, then you could use something, I guess, like the Carbine 7 if you really wanted to. The damage on this is 18.5k, 935 RPM with the 50 round magazine. The talents on this weapon is measured. The top half of the magazine has 20% rate of fire and negative 15% weapon damage. The bottom half of the magazine has negative 20% rate of fire and 30% total weapon damage. So with the RPM on this weapon, and when you're almost out of ammo, it will get a 30% total weapon damage, which is really nice because this weapon is not hitting as hard, something like the Eagle Bear, or you can see the AK sitting at 24.1, but this RPM on this is pretty great, and you'll get 30% while your weapon's almost empty. And you get Allegro for 10% rate of fire, so that helps out a lot with measured. And the talent, which is the third talent, which while holstered, weapon and swap speed is increased by 10%. The attachments on this weapon, I'm using the Rugged Mini Reflex. If you guys want more stability or accuracy, you can always change these stability and accuracy mods. For stability, I'd recommend using the small RDS scope. For the laser pointer, I'm using the 5% crit chance. Same goes for this one. If you guys want more stability or even reload speed, you could put these on instead. Omega Rifle Suppressor, which is the 20% stability and negative 10% optimal range. And the 20 rounds for the 5.56 mag. If you guys do not have this mag and you're new, you can acquire this, be going into the control points, which you guys be like, take level 3 or level 4. You should get blueprints from that once you complete them, or you can donate to your daily SHD requisitions at the base and get blueprints from that. But that's about it for the primary weapon. Now the secondary is going to be the Eagle Bear. If you want to use an SMG, you can, or even a shotgun, but I'm using the Eagle Bear due to the fact the holster talent is protected fire. While holstered, gain 10% bonus armor while firing your current weapon. This is really nice if you're face tanking a player with your Police M4, and you'll get that little bit extra armor, so it'll give you a slight advantage when you're fighting someone. But if they have higher armor than you, you might have a little bit of a problem, but it's really nice to have just as a holstered talent. If you guys are not familiar as well, if you're new, the Eagle Bear is an exotic rifle or assault rifle that you can actually get acquired from the Operation Dark Hour raid. It's not guaranteed. It took me around 30 plus times to actually get this to drop, so it's a bit of a pain to get unless you're very lucky. Now, I'll cover the gear set I'm using first. I'm using True Patriot, which is the 2-piece, which I'm using the 10% total armor, which is the new requirements, or the new, originally it was a little bit different if you guys are new. It used to be damage to armor, and because these were originally 6-piece, like the ones from the classified gear sets from the first game, but now they're just normal 4-piece gear sets. But you get 10% total armor for just the 2-piece. And the rolls on this are 45% hazard protection and 13,000 health. Health is really nice to increase, obviously, your health on your build, and hazard is great when people are using stuff like bleed hives or seekers that are making you bleed, or using fire grenades, stuff like that, flashbangs to help you for hazard protection. It's kind of like exotic damage resilience from the first game. If you guys are just now showing up, that's pretty much what hazard protection is. I'm using a crit hit damage, a crit hit chance, 1.5% weapon damage mod on the mask. And I'll go to the holster since it's the True Patriot as well. This is rolled for 13.5 crit chance, 33,000 health, with assault rifle damage and damage to armor, and a marksman rifle damage mod. If you guys have better mods, you obviously can change these up a little bit. Now, to the chest piece, which is a Hela chest piece, or Hela guard, we're going to call it. From these bonuses, you're going to get 5% total armor, 20% hazard, and the 15% skill power, the pulse skill power. And the skill power for the pulse isn't really important for this style of the build, but you guys will see why I'm running 3-piece. But total armor and hazard protection is really nice, so you can add that to your hazard protection on your mask and get a little bit of hazard protection for people using stuff, like I said, like the bleed and burn, etc., etc. The attributes on this are 15% total armor, 10,000 health with 42,611 armor. I know some of you guys are going to have a little bit of trouble finding these pieces if you're new, or if you've been grinding for a long time in the game. This is pretty much a piece I got back in TU5, between TU5 and TU4, around that time, when tons of these items were being dropped in the vendors. If you guys have been here around for a while, you know the stuff like the 18.5 total armor backpack in DZ South, and the 30% total armor chest piece. It's items like this you guys might have a little problem getting. If you farm enough, you should have no problem getting total armor rolls if you just farm for the loot allocation areas. But overall, you're going to have 3 defensive to unlock Bloodsucker because it does require 11 or more defensive. If you're not familiar, depleting enemies' armor adds a stack of 25% bonus armor for 10 seconds. Max stack is 6, and that's what Bloodsucker is, which does require 11 more defensive. So you will have to stack into a decent amount of defensive on this build. Utility mod slot, which I wish was a red slot, but for the longest time, I've not been able to actually get a pretty decent Gila chest piece with a red. For some reason, it keeps giving me 2 blues and a yellow, but it's whatever. But on this, I have skill power, high skill power, and Firefly. It's really not really necessary. You could put reload speed if you want to, or ongoing or outgoing healing, something like that. But I just have that on there just for now. But the mods that matter on here are the total armor and armor mods. You see I have 2,000 health on this one as well, with 3.5 total armor and 4,376 total armor. And that's about it for the chest piece. On to the backpack. This is where the other pieces of Gila are in the build as well. You see 14.5 total armor, 4.5 crit hit damage, and 2.5 weapon damage with Vital, which gives you 25% extra health, which I wish was hardened, but you can flip if you want to. Doesn't make that big of a deal. I've learned to live with it, and it works just fine. Spark, which is damaging enemies with a skill or explosives, grants 15% weapon damage for 15 seconds. This does require 9 or more offensive. The mod on this is an assault rifle, marksman rifle damage mod, due to the fact it's 4% assault rifle, and the defensive mod is total armor, health, and armor. Now to the gloves, these are the Fenris gloves. I've been trying to get my hands on for a while. I, for some reason, cannot get pretty decent Fenris gloves. I don't know why it's like that. My luck could just be garbage, but I cannot get really any good Fenris gloves. But these ones have 3.5 crit hit chance, assault rifle damage, and obliterate. Depleting an enemy's armor grants 30% crit hit damage for 15 seconds. Does require 4 or more offensive, and this has no mod on it, but you will get 10% assault rifle damage as the brand set bonus 1. Now, to the Gila knee pads. This is where the 3-piece bonus comes into play, because I'm wearing 3 pieces of this, 11.5 total armor, which is really nice. Hard hitting is for damage to elites, due to the fact I go into PV a lot with this build, the DZ and PvP, but sometimes I have to kill NPCs that are in my way, and I might be trying to farm for an item that I'm really looking for while killing players. If I come across a landmark, I might take it out or have to fight through it. It's really nice to have a little bit extra damage to elites, but if you guys want more survivability, you could always use something like Patience while in your cover, which will make your armor go up by 5% every 1 second. But that's after being in cover for 5 seconds, which will increase your armor. Or you could use something like Surge if you're using Skill Haste, or even better, in my opinion, since people are using tons of bleed, would be Insulated. And the mods on this, which you guys will see here is why I'm using them, because you get 2 offensive or 2 defensive mods. You get 3.5 total armor, 4,000 armor, and 4,000 armor with 19% bleed resistance. Bleed resistance is really nice if you don't have Insulated like I can do on these knee pads. You can put bleed resistance, so if you have these 19% or 20%ers, you could put these on here to make your build really high against stuff like bleed. People do use other stuff, but bleed is pretty much the main one I run into in this update, and a lot of people will say the same thing because people are using bleed hives like crazy. And that's going to be about it for the main pieces, and I'll go into the skills. Before I do that, I will cover one other thing, and that's the sidearm, which some people are going to ask me about that, and that's the Orbit Pistol. I do have Perfect Finisher on here, which is swapping from this weapon within 10 seconds of killing an enemy grants 40% crit hit chance and 50% crit hit damage for 15 seconds. Optimize on overlap. Overlap is nice, so you get a little bit more weapon handling on your weapon, and it's well holstered, and you're never really using your pistol. But if you kill something like an NPC or a player, you will proc the crit hit chance and crit hit damage for 15 seconds, which is really nice in combat. So if if you're fighting and you kill someone or kill an NPC, you'll get this proc and use your main weapon and get a little bit more damage out of it for crit hit chance and crit hit damage. Now to the skills, there are a few skills you can change with this build. For Spark, for example, you can use something like a drone, which is right here, which I do flip back and forth to. The drone is the striker one, and that's pretty much how I proc Spark all the time, essentially non-stop. If you hit an enemy with this and keep hitting them over and over and over again, Spark will constantly proc, so you'll actually get that damage as long as your turret is, or your drone or your turret is still active, and you can always use explosives as well. But at the moment, I'm using the Restore Hive, and that's the healing hive, so you could run around and get a little bit of heals from this, which is healing is 37,000. And if you actually have the skill power, you can upgrade this healing a little bit more, but it does require a decent amount of skill power to unlock this. It's up in the 2000s, I think around 2200, just to unlock like a 37%, somewhere around there. But if you really want to have more healing, I'd spec into skill power on this build. Now to the main source of healing, and that's going to be the Mender Seeker. That's why I'm using the Survivalist. I've been using the Mender Seeker for who knows how long on my Bloodsucker build. Probably since the game first came out, when I started making Bloodsucker builds, around TU5, TU4, around there. I just love the Mender Seeker due to the fact that you get a 50% healing increase just from the payload slot, and that's why I use this thing for the longest time, because it gives you 28,425 HP for the healing, even though it does not require literally anything to unlock this. It's just unlocked as long as you have the Survivalist specialization on, and you get 80% skill haste, and you put 302 skill power for the Seeker Mine as well. But you can see the cooldown is 33 seconds because the 80% skill haste, which is really nice. So if you guys are using Survivalist, I'd highly recommend using this. If you're not, you're probably using something else like the Chem Launcher, which if you're not using this for Survivalist, which you can do as well, which is right here, which is the Reinforcer Chem Launcher, which will give you PvP armor repair for 25,000 and armor repair for 50,000 HP. But that's about it for these skills. I'll go into the stats so you guys can see these real quick for the crit chance and crit damage and some other stuff like that in PvP weapon damage. You can see it's 12,741 PvP weapon damage, 29% crit chance, and 32% crit damage. Just a reminder, you're using Obliterate as well, so when that procs, when you're using Bloodsucker, you're getting armor back, and also when you destroy their armor, that will proc and give you more crit hit damage, so you'll hit enemies a little bit harder. Headshot damage is 55%, 32 range, 2.7 reload speed, reload time, reload speed bonus negative 10% due to the fact that mag reduces that. Stability is 20%, which you can increase by mods, like I said. Weapon handling from overlap. You can see the 40% assault rifle damage from the mods, and the Fender's pieces, and the EMI assault rifle damage talent from Survivalist. Damage leads is 25%. Damage to health and armor, which is right here. And I'll scroll down onto some of the defensive 420,000 armor, 111,000 max health, protection from elites. And this is where stuff like Hazard comes into play, because you have 84% bleed resistance, 65% hazard protection, but you can increase this if you want more bleed resistance by using stuff like the mods, like I said, and just stack the 20%ers, and you should have no problem resisting bleed. But overall, you do have 65% for stuff like Burn, Confuse, Disrupt, stuff like that, so you have some resistance against that stuff. Now here's some of these skills. You guys can see here, Hive skill power, the healing, PvP healing, and I'll go down to the Seeker Mine, so you guys can see that as well. But that's going to be pretty much about it, guys. This is the build I've been running in PvP, mostly in the DZ and a little bit in Conflict. I will have some gameplay a little bit later on for you guys, but I know that you guys will probably notice I've not been uploading as much to the fact that it is the holidays and I'm a little bit busy, and I've been taking kind of a small break from Division just a little bit. Also, I will be trying to upload something a little bit different to the channel next probably 2 weeks. I'm actually going to try uploading some Pavlov from Oculus once that comes to the mail and I get that all set up, so you guys might see a little bit of VR gameplay of me messing around with a few of my friends. But overall, thank you guys all for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe for more Division 2 content, and as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one.